Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to the double Gameweek 36 pod of the FPL Wire, powered by DreamSetGo. I'm your host, Zophar, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Lateriser. How's it going, buddy?
Going good. As usual, been a hectic week, but got into things, caught up on everything last night and this morning before we sat on the pod. And looking forward to this discussion because we've really not spoken all week. So anything that we're talking, I'd be interested in listening to your point of view. And hopefully you help me with my decisions. I think I know what I'm going to do, but I'm interested in hearing what you have to say. You had a good week, a nice little jump close to that 10K. That 10K goal looks achievable for you now, Zoph. Tell us about your week.
I got up to 15K now, Sun captaincy delivered. And it's just been the two captaincies in the last 3 weeks. I think Salah against United and then Sun. Now that's really made a big difference. So I'm hoping now that I have a good team this week, but the problem is a lot of other people have chips to play, like a bench boost this week. Nearly top 50% of the top 10K has a free hit chip also, I think, to play. So hopefully hold ground, make some ground, not lose too much ground this week, attack in 37, and then I think 38, it might come down to captaincy. Maybe go against Salah, somebody like Son against Norwich. It's going to be interesting.
Yep. Son is absolutely, I don't know why I haven't owned him. And I
All
have
season.
this thing with him, all season. I've owned him in a few weeks, but haven't been owning him for a consistent while, made my bets on the 28 wildcard where I went Kane over Son. And the funny thing is they're almost par when it comes to expected goals and expected data. And in that period, from 28 onwards, Son has almost double the points of Kane. And we're talking about 35 to 70-ish
I remember
points.
it's like 37 to 74 or 73, something like that. I was looking at that yesterday. It's ridiculous.
That's nuts. That's one of the big reasons I'm thinking of free hitting right now because I have Kane and Kulu. And anyway, the Liverpool highline makes me think about Son. So I was like, you know what? It's a good opportunity to free hit Son. And what a weekend of, midweek of Champions League football.
What a match.
I mean, what was that with City? And there was a very interesting tweet that I read from somebody where said that in the last 7 or 8 Champions League semi-finals or ties where City have gone out, or where Pep's teams have gone out, it's always been a period of 5 to 7 minutes where they concede 1, 2, or 3 goals. So it's always been like 7 or 8 minutes of madness which happens. It's never been one goal in the first half conceded, second goal conceded in the second half. It's always been this short period which does them. What do you? We'll talk about it later, but yeah, lots to get into.
Yeah.
Excited to chat with you.
I think big game experience makes a big difference for them. Game management. We saw how Madrid did it. We call it the dark arts or whatever. But City showed up. They were a little bit naive, I think, in the last few minutes.
Yeah, and just I mean, if De Bruyne wasn't injured, I think he would have gotten stuck into Pep. I mean, because I know
I don't
he
think
wants
he
that.
was. He didn't look at
Yeah.
all. I don't know. Maybe it was something he signaled, but he was playing poorly. But you still leave a guy like that on. More than him, Mahrez. And we'll talk about Mahrez. I don't want to spoil the conversation. Let's get started. And apologies in advance. I'm dealing with a very bad throat infection. So if I suddenly break out into cough, I apologize. I'll try to mute it whenever I can. Let's go. DreamSetGo is India's first sports travel and experiences platform, offering a range of premium end-to-end authentic experiences across football, cricket, tennis, F1, rugby and golf, among others. From matchday hospitality to VIP stadium tours, from private meet and greets with athletes and legends to exclusive access to their training sessions, DreamSetGo curates the most fulfilling sports travel packages for fans like you.
All the stats that you see on our podcast are from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. If you aren't a member already, please click on the links in the description below. And if you're watching us on YouTube right now, make sure you're hitting the like and subscribe button. It really helps us. It helps the channel grow. We're planning to make some changes again in the summer and come with something fresh for you next season. So yeah, help us out and get the word out. Right, Zoph, let's get stuck into it. How do we go about this?
Let's start with Man City. The biggest
Right.
elephant in the room. I think we have to talk about what happened midweek. Now, first off, I just was asking my question now how the players are going to react on Sunday, right? Now, this is a team of winners, the guys who have shown like last 2, 3 years, they have a strong mentality. I think they're going to come out fighting now. This is the only trophy they can win this season.
Yep. They only have 4 games left this season. That's it. So do we see much more of rotation? I think the guys that were, you know, playing 120 minutes, etc., midweek might get a little bit of a rotation, but the likes of De Bruyne, the likes of Mahrez we know is first choice because the data that I've read is that he's played what 80-85% of the Champions League games and 30-35% of the Premier League games. But he, in my head, he's in that first team for Manchester City. That's it. There is no first team from what we've seen and from the excellent insight that we've received from Luke Disable on Twitter is that Pep also likes to pick his teams based on opposition, etc. as well. I was actually stalking his Twitter this morning as well, reading all the replies that he's had to people as well. And one interesting point he made is that Pep does have certain favored people versus different kind of opposition. That's something that stuck in my head as well, and wanting to see what he says later this evening in terms of thread. But I do like the idea of a punt on Mahrez, especially because only I think Salah and Son come close to Mahrez when it comes to points per 90. Nobody else really touches Mahrez, and there is also the penalties factor. Now we know for sure. I mean, I think Pep said it in a interview as well that Mahrez is first choice penalty taker. So if he's on the pitch, that's something that comes into play as well. So even if he doesn't play one game, the good thing about a City double game week is you can punt on a City attacker knowing that they're going to start at least one of the 2 games. That's a little bit of an advantage, and then you're punting on catching a haul by, and Mahrez has a little bit of haul potential, in my opinion. And we can see in the data that you're presenting on the screen as well. When it comes to minutes per XGI, he's right up there because of how he plays, etc. as well. He's very selfish. So yeah, that has me thinking. One interesting point that Luke made was Pep does like to pair Mahrez with Walker on that right-hand side. Now, what has happened is we don't know if Walker's injured, whether he's going to be fit for the midweek, because if Cancelo and Mahrez are playing on the right-hand side, assuming that Zinchenko or Ake will play as a left back, that leaves them a little bit exposed on that side. So that's a little bit of a worry that, look, this is not my insight. It's insight from Luke, borrowed, but worth sharing with our listeners and viewers. So that is an interesting point. What do you think?
I think let's talk about the data what we have in front. Just for the audio guys, I'll read it out really quick. So this is minutes per expected goal involvement. This is over the season. LR, you sent me this.
Yep.
So over the season, Mahrez is involved in the goal. He's got the best average, 103 minutes. Then you have Sterling, Gundogan, Foden, then De Bruyne. So when he's on the pitch and we talk about it, like Mahrez has potential to deliver. And if you compare Mahrez to, I was going to go for somebody like Foden. Now you see, look at Foden's like scores over the remaining part of the season. What we've seen so far, I think he's got two big hauls. I think one was a Brighton game where we had him with Jesus hit the goal in off his backside, and the other one was against Leeds. I don't think he's got too many big hauls about that. And plus, I don't think he'll take as many set pieces with KDB and Mahrez in the team. We saw against Leeds again, one of his assists was from a set piece. So I think Foden has good point potential, but he doesn't scream haul potential to me. He could get like maybe something like 6-7 in both games and give you a haul, but that 20 plus pointer, I'm not seeing it from Foden.
Mahrez does have a tendency to be more explosive, for sure. Also, if you're in your position, or if somebody who doesn't have a free hit, I think Mahrez should play 3 out of the 4 that are remaining for the season. And I quite like him for the West Ham game as well, because West Ham are going to sit and park. And in games where teams like to sit and park, Mahrez does get preferred on that side where he's able to cut in and shoot, etc. as well. So that's also a thinking in my head. So I'm considering free hitting. And the dilemma, I think KDB is pretty much locked in my free hit draft. If I go there, it's whether I go for double defense or throw in a Mahrez or a Foden or a Gabriel Jesus. I've not ruled anybody out at the moment. I haven't made any decisions yet for my team. I think that's going to probably happen later tonight after this chat with you.
Let's talk from back to front. In terms of the back line, I think Laporte and Cancelo probably the first choice too you'd go for, or you're interested in Diaz again?
Just want to wait in terms of what Pep says in his presser as well, because from what I read, he was hobbling a little. Right at the end was Laporte, so you want to assess fitness, etc. as well. So if he's fine and if there's a clean bill of health, I prefer Laporte to a Diaz. But because Laporte has a substantially high goal threat as well, he's capable of the 20-point haul in a double as well. So I do like that.
I think I remember like it was against Everton when they had that double. I think Laporte scored. So Laporte has tendency to do well, from what I can remember in doubles. But that being said, and I know what you're talking about with the goal threat, I completely agree. There was an Athletic article about City's increased threat from set pieces, but Laporte hasn't had a single shot the last 6 matches.
Yeah. That said, when you're watching, you know he's in and around the set pieces. They are targeting him. So I'm not too worried about that.
Just needs one chance to fall in the right area, right? That's how this nature of set pieces are.
Another interesting stat that while we're talking about the back line, and remember we were talking about this maybe 10 or 15 weeks ago in terms of assessing whether Cancelo is a better option as an FPL pick on the left or the right. And there's an interesting stat where 8 out of his 9 actual assists have come when he's played left back. And there's only one that has come when he's played at right back. So in my head, he's a much better FPL asset, but you swerve a Cancelo on a week like this? I don't. I think he's also pretty nailed for expected minutes, with Walker's minutes being dicey because of potential injury concerns. We don't have that information yet. We are going to be looking for Pep's presser to judge that. But yeah, I wouldn't swerve or Cancelo. Would you?
There's no reason to. Even against Leeds, he had a very good big chance, which he really should have converted. He hit straight at the keeper. If he had been, let's say, he got a 15-pointer there, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Yeah. Edison also, I mean, the person you picked on your wildcard is somebody I'm considering on free hit, because there's a high floor there, where you're 100% guaranteed 180 minutes out of Edison. There is in my head, 7 to 8 point floor there. And the ceiling is 12 to 14 points, which I don't think is quite the case with Schmeichel. Now, I think most people who are looking at free hit or looking for a keeper in 36 are looking at either Edison, Schmeichel, or Pickford. I think these are the names that people are looking at.
Maybe Martinez, but Martinez is more for next week, I think.
Yeah. More for next week. If you're buying this week, you're chasing that upside with Pickford or Schmeichel also, in my opinion. So I think Edison is a fair play if you're not confident about somebody at centre back. But if Laporte is fit, I prefer him to Edison. That's where I am. And this is assuming Cancelo's first choice in both our heads.
Midfield, right. I don't think in Gundogan, Bernardo is worth even looking at, but I think De Bruyne, arguably, I think he's a better captain shout than Salah this week.
Yeah, I want somebody to ask Pep, what's up? Why did De Bruyne not get substituted? Because he's been talking about niggling injuries and all of that all throughout the
It's
last
going to be a very
month, and he
salty.
got
It'll be a very salty reaction from Pep. I can just picture what he is going to say. Just going to say that I'm the manager. I make decisions. You guys like blah 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 blah. I don't think we'll get a straight answer from Pep. He's going to be very salty in that press conference.
Yep. But I would go to Bruno. The impression that I get every time I watch City is that he's either assisting or in the goal scoring position. And that's visible in the goal. So, what you see in front of us is the goal involvement percentages of the players when they're on the pitch. And De Bruyne has a 46% goal involvement. That just resonates with what I'm watching when I'm watching Manchester City plays. That he's involved in all their chances, or he's involved in 80 or 90% of the chances. So I do agree, if you're chasing, I don't mind the De Bruyne captaincy shout. That said, I'm on Salah at the moment, and that's where my head is, and I'm fairly optimistic about that. I am not as cold on a Salah captaincy as most people around me that I'm seeing at the moment, but I'm not against De Bruyne captaincy shout at all. Interesting on the chart that we have in front of us is the number for Riyad Mahrez as well, where his goal involvement percentage is 47% when he's on the pitch for Manchester City. So if he is finding the minutes, there's no doubt, if you're confident about Mahrez's expected minutes, he's a great FPL asset. That's where I am. And Foden has a 21% goal involvement. So, and also what we've seen is that he's been primarily playing on the left, or he's playing as a false nine. Now, I think Gabriel Jesus' form and how he's been playing in the past few weeks has Foden pretty much locked in as an option on the left-hand side, because I'm expecting Jesus to get a lot of minutes up front as well. And did you see how Grealish's cameo was? I thought he was really, really good and really
It was good, and
explosive in
he
that
should
position.
have. That being said, he should have buried the game.
He should have buried the game, but he did well. I thought he was up for it, and I thought he played really, really well. So I do have a slight lingering doubt where Pep goes in the first game where Foden's played 120 minutes against Madrid, because Foden's first choice in my head, but he could easily go Grealish, Jesus, Mahrez in the first game of the double. That's where I am in terms of.
Yeah, the first game is a trickier one because we know. See, the thing is now Foden is very clearly part of City's first team, the first
sure.
choice 11, and very much part of Pep's favorites. But it's the first game that's a trickier one for Foden. And on Blue Moon forums, where they do the predictions for which players are going to start from Man City, I think out of 8, 0 have Foden starting so far.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a worry. I think if you're picking for the season, Foden is fine as a pick, because you're probably going to get 20-30 minutes against Newcastle if he doesn't start. This is just us predicting. We're speculating at the moment. Neither of us are experts, or Pep for that matter. But I'm expecting him to again get 3 out of the 4 games for sure. That's where I'm in terms of thinking with Foden. I don't mind him as a pick. I just think Mahrez is more explosive. That's all.
Completely. And what about Sterling? A lot of guys are carrying him over from the last 2 weeks. Stick or get rid?
Not a part of City's first choice team, and he will be playing first choice. So I'm not. I would switch.
I would get rid. I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
Move him to a De Bruyne or even a Mahrez. I don't mind.
Exactly. Gabby J punt, where are you with that?
I think Gabby J is definitely worth looking at, especially on a free hit. I don't know if I would bring him in as a permanent transfer. I don't even mind actually as a permanent transfer. It's not that bad.
Exactly. I don't mind Jesus, but I just still somewhat prefer the midfielders. I'd still go Foden or Mahrez, assuming De Bruyne is your first choice pick. Foden or Mahrez over.
On a free hit, double attack for me. I wouldn't go double defensive. De Bruyne, Mahrez, Cancelo.
Yeah. Also, on paper though, the thinking is that Newcastle and Wolves are pretty much as locked. They're very good bets for clean sheets based on how they played. But and the data tells us that Newcastle's defense has been good. But I think the difference in quality showed when Liverpool played Newcastle as well. They had a 1.86 xG versus Newcastle and created a ton of chances.
10
and I don't
shots on
expect
target. I remember Dubravka got 7 points after conceding.
Exactly. So I see that, but there's another theory also where because of Pep wanting to make sure he wants to secure the league, if they go 2 goals up, they move into what was it? Exhaust ball. What was that? How did they play last season?
Pandemic ball.
Pandemic ball, where they see the game out. Do you see something like that happening?
I think not the Newcastle game. I think the Newcastle game is going to be a sort of a reaction after going out from the Champions League. You'd want to get that out of your system, get as many goals out as possible. And even Wolves. The Wolves have completely shit the bed. There's some rumors of a bust up between Johnny Jimenez and Bruno Lage. And the last game, it was the worst Wolves have played all season. They could have easily conceded 6 or 7 to Brighton whatsoever. So they are completely all over the shop.
And that's something Even did you read Larger's comments? He clearly called out it was the worst performance of the season. And when you're looking at XG data or XGC data over the last 6-8 games, Wolves are in the bottom 5
They
for
shit the
both.
bed completely.
Yeah, so it's not like Wolves are a good defense, and it's also XG catching up to Wolves, right? I mean, Jose Sa has been wearing a cape all season, and he has an expected goals prevented of 9.4 or something. I read, which is ridiculous. The next best was 2.2 or 2.3, which was De Gea, which is our keeper. So, yeah, XG is just catching up to them.
And
Wolves
remember
are a
this,
good fixture
this is
for
what I was
Chelsea
telling
and
you. Also, all the way in game week 30, that the XGC is just not sustainable. Like this goalkeeper guy cannot keep bailing them out.
Exactly. Which is actually, it's a good segue into just talking a little bit about Chelsea, because the first game that Wolves play is against Chelsea. Now, just talking to you from my personal point of view, I own somebody like a Reece James, and I'm expecting Reece James to start against Wolves. And the haulage potential for Reece James against the Wolves at home is very, very high in my opinion, just because of how crap Wolves have been. So there is a risk in terms of free hitting out a James 18 pointer. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a little bit of a worry in my head. But I think with 3 weeks to go, gambles are the gambles, and you have to chase the halls. Is where I am. That's where. Let's talk a little bit about Chelsea.
Chelsea,
Just
yep.
segue.
So Chelsea have
Where are
had
you
the
with
free
them?
Let me just explain Chelsea's schedule a little bit. Chelsea have had a free midweek now. We play on, I think, Saturday against Wolves, and then we play Wednesday against Leeds, Saturday in the cup final. Liverpool have an extra day of rest. They play on the Tuesday. So they'll have an extra day of rest compared to us in the cup final. Now the league position has made things a bit precarious. Arsenal are only 3 points behind us. But that being said, by the time we play Leeds, things would become a lot clearer. Spurs would most likely would have lost to Liverpool. That's what we would expect, based on how that fixture is expected to play out. We might be a lot more comfortable by then. And also, what's interesting is after the gap for game week 37 is quite big. We play on the Saturday and then we play Leicester all the way on the Thursday. So my initial school of thought is we would probably see the strongest team against Watford on 38 and maybe a weaker team in 37, but that may not be the case. He may look to clinch it in 37 and then play the kids in 38.
Kids or testimonials.
Kids or last game testimonials. So it becomes a bit tricky now. I'm not even sure that the Chelsea guys, if you're looking to free hit in 37, are necessarily going to start in 38. There's really no guarantees whatsoever.
Would you roll the dice and go no Chelsea from free hit?
Yes.
36?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
But let's say, who do we get? You get 3 from City, 3 from Liverpool, maybe like one from
We'll
Spurs.
move into the free.
Yeah, we'll
Let's
talk
stick
about
to
the
Chelsea.
Yeah, I'm getting
But
sidetracked.
the only person who would tempt me probably would be a Marcos Alonso, because he's basically center forward Chelsea at the moment. He's just sticking there all the time. Every time the play is coming from your right hand side, because of how creative Mount and James are, and both of them are on the right hand side, they're creating chances, and it's Alonso's role to be in the center of the box when the ball is getting crossed from that side. So do you think and from what I've heard, he is pretty durable as a player. I think Gianni mentioned it on Twitter as well, where Tuchel has mentioned it many times that Alonso's fitness levels are good. He's a durable person. What are your thoughts there? Do you think he gets both games?
I don't think so, but I've been terrible at predicting Chelsea's X minutes, but we'll try it again. I don't think so, because he's going to be marking Salah on Saturday. He can't do it after playing against like Rafinha also on Wednesday. Imagine doing Wednesday and Saturday against Rafinha and Salah. That is a brutal gig.
Fair shout. And I do like that the game is against Leeds, because the Leeds are capable of scoring a goal against Chelsea, at least, so the clean sheet percentage.
They need points. Leeds are very much in the relegation battle, and that's, I think, one of the last few home games. So they will go for it hammer and tongue.
What about non-chip users who hold Reece, Alonso, Mount, Kai? What are your thoughts there?
So there are two scenarios now. Let's say if we drop points against Wolves, you have to expect most of the guys are going to start against Leeds. That's one eventuality. Now, assuming we beat Wolves, I don't think Mount might still play, because the free midweek off makes things tricky. And the team has not really been in a good rhythm the past few weeks. You might say that, play the first team for a few games, get the rhythm back, get the confidence back ahead of the cup final. This is something he could do. And this is what happened against Everton also. He cited that we have a free midweek the week after. That's why I don't want to rotate. So that's the tricky part over there. The defense, I'd probably stick, because I think whoever you move to, let's see, you're moving, every transfer is worth of 4 points, right? That's how we look at it.
Yeah.
You're looking at 6 to 8 points for an Alonso or a Reece James. The guy you bring in has to really haul to make that up. So I'd probably...
And Wolves is
a haul fixture.
dark green fixture, if you're looking at a fixture ticker, it's a really, really good fixture at the moment based on how teams forms. And I'm fully expecting the first team to start.
Absolutely. No doubt about that. So the midfielders obviously become a bit more tricky, and somebody like a Werner as well. Havertz and Werner would be ditched for me, but Mount is not a fire sell
Yeah.
out of all
I
the
think
mids.
Mount is capable of playing both games as well. Again, he's been run to the ground many times and he doesn't really have fitness issues. He's a durable guy, as they say.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't sell Mount.
Because you'd expect
If
him to at least come on as a sub against Leeds.
yeah, exactly.
That's virtually guaranteed.
Cool. So I don't think they're hard sells either way, your Chelsea players, given that you're expecting them to start in 37 as well. So
I don't know about
if you
Kai
do,
though. That's the only thing about, because again he was so poor against Everton, but Lukaku didn't even get a single minute. I thought that was shocking man management. So I don't know if he's
yeah.
going to stick with his guns on that or look to sort of mend fences with Lukaku over there.
Yeah, because your first, I don't think there are any doubts about the expected minutes for Alonso, Reece James, etc. as well. But the doubts are in terms of what's your first choice front three. Now that's a big factor because Kai, Timo, and Mount is there, but they haven't got the results. The big factor, actually, which was the most important thing in the Everton game, was Kovacic is back, and I think he takes your team up another gear. So
Definitely.
that's why I'm a little worried about 3 or 4 goals versus Wolves. That's where I am in terms of haulage potential in that Wolves game because Kovacic is first choice and he's great. He's a much better upgrade on either Jorginho or Kante on current form at the moment. That's a factor.
But on a free hit, probably not.
Probably not. Not even one roll of the dice.
Maybe try it on Alonso, or maybe if you're going to go, then I think both are going to play one game each, and I'll always favor Reece James. You know that.
Yeah. Cool. Let's talk about Liverpool. Potential quadruple for them this season. What a season they're having. I absolutely hope they don't get that quadruple. It would be terrible because a lot of the people surrounding
social media will be unbearable over the summer.
But what a guy, what a manager, what a team. Incredible team. Right. I think
they had
Salah
a scare,
and Trent.
Even they had a scare at halftime. We didn't look what was going to happen. Let's talk about the big topic of conversation first. Everyone's trying to, it's all about X minutes now. Everyone's trying to predict the rotation and all that stuff. There's a lot of speculation that Robertson is due a rest now. Do you think so? I don't see it happening personally.
Yeah, I'm scared. I'm genuinely scared. But that's it. Given the fixtures and the capability of opposition to score goals on a free hit, I'm a little less worried because I'm expecting Spurs to score against Liverpool. And Villa are also capable of a goal and breaking the clean sheet against Liverpool. So when it comes to going for, and a lot of people are saying that, you can expect to go for a Matip instead of a Robbo so that you're having double Liverpool defense and more expected minutes. Robbo is definitely starting against Spurs. Zero doubts in my head. He can't flock and chance a Simicast against that Spurs team. So it's about whether he starts that Villa game before the cup final. That's where the thinking is.
That
And
being
I'm
said,
not
it's on
confident.
Tuesday. There's a decent gap, right? So I think the worst period for Liverpool is already gone, where they had to do the whole Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday thing. Now they played on Tuesday. Now they're going to be playing on Saturday. Then they'll play again on Tuesday. Then again on Saturday. Then I think they play on the Wednesday after, and then there's a week. So the trickiest part of the schedule is over. And I think Robbo brings so much personality and so much leadership on the pitch. He was even taking Van Dijk's case the other day for making an error and all that stuff. So I think you can't really. That's such an underrated part of his game.
Yeah. I'm not as bullish on the Robbo rest as a lot of other people are, just because I don't think Aston Villa away is an easy game. It isn't an easy game. And it honestly doesn't depend on us, and it doesn't depend on anybody else but the guys who are putting the red, yellow, and green markers on the fitness status of the players when they're looking at them. So it's down to that sports science, basically. So there is a chance for a Robbo rest. I think we're very confident about Trent, Salah, and Matip being fine as picks for this week. What do you think about the two midfielders? Either of them options for you?
Luis Diaz on free hit, definitely.
Definitely in.
If I was free hitting, I would definitely get Luis Diaz over Robbo. But these two fixtures, like I said, they're not screaming clean sheets to me.
Yeah, in my head, Diaz starts first because he's right now above Jota in the pecking order for me in terms of being first choice.
He completely changed the game against Villarreal. They were very poor before that.
And that's happened previously as well. Diaz has just been really, really good. He's a level above Jota on current form at the moment. So I'm expecting him to play the cup final per se,
Hmm.
and that means that he could maybe play Jota in the Villa game. That's where my thinking is in terms of okay, if he has to manage the minutes there, which is why I'm not leaning towards going for the attacker, because I still think there's going to be shared minutes between the two.
Fair enough.
That's the
But you
yeah,
have to
and that's
differentiate, right? Because Robbo is what, 40-50% owned. And we'll talk about the free hit thing. We keep getting sidetracked over there. You have to be a
yeah.
little bit different in certain positions.
Yeah, but if you're not free hitting this week, you hold your Trent, Robo, Salah.
Absolutely. No doubt. There's
No,
nothing
no
wrong with
doubt
them
in
whatsoever. The Diaz is a
nothing.
free hit pick. Even Jota, if you want to go as a punt, I don't mind that.
I'd go Diaz over Jota.
100%.
Yeah, like there's
The
he's
form,
just first
the
choice.
form has gone the other way completely.
Yeah. The thing about Jota though is when he's on the pitch, he shits points. Literally shits points all the time. It's a very interesting. If you can move to the goal involvement table,
Yes.
the numbers were staggering there for Diogo Jota. What was it?
56%.
56% goal involvement when he's on the pitch. That's higher than Salah and Mane, and that's visible because he's the center point of that attack. You know, when he's playing, and he's always in the point, so he's explosive as a pick as well. So it comes down to your subjective interpretation of expected minutes, and where I am, Diaz is above Jota in the pecking.
Completely agree with you. I want to talk about Salah a little bit. I was just looking into his stats the other day. He's had 2 shots on target the last 6 game weeks, both of which were the goals against Man U. Apart from that, not a single shot on target. I think he's taken on a bit more of a creative role. He's top for big chances created over the last 6 games. I think that has something to do with Mane playing centre forward and Diaz playing on the left. There's something different about Salah. I'm not saying I won't captain him or he's a bad pick, etc. But the appeal has gone down slightly.
Yeah, but one big factor in my head was Son scored 2 goals against Leicester. He's close now.
Yeah.
He's close now, and Salah is 127% going to be aware about that, and we're going to be seeing we're going to be seeing selfish Salah again. Did you see that interview that he had
Yeah,
as well after the
yeah.
Villarreal game
I
as
wouldn't
well?
read.
And
I wouldn't read so much into that. The saying a striker saying I want to score goals.
I understand, but it's Salah. He's aware of that. He's really aware of the goal. As much as you say that these guys who are competing for the Golden Boot are not aware about it, they are
They're always
100%
aware.
aware.
Even if they do, they won't
They're
say so in the media. Every single guy is conscious of his goal tally.
Every single guy. So it would take a lot for me at the moment as things stand on Friday morning, because the thinking is going to happen later tonight with a scotch or two, but it would take a lot to move the armband out of Mo Salah. That's how bullish I am on Mo Salah captaincy. That's where I am, and I don't think the Spurs defense is a good defense as well. They conceded a fair amount of chances to Leicester City also. So there's also a little slight. I like the KDB captaincy shout as well, and I think it's between a City and a Liverpool player. I wouldn't captain a Son because of the opposition that they're facing in the 2 games. I like the idea of Salah captain or KDB captain, but I'm on Salah at the moment. I'm feeling fairly confident about it somehow. I feel like just Salah is going to know that, and Salah knows his Son is not far away, and he's talking about his goal tally. And a player like Salah can't keep quiet. Also, they're big games. Big games, big players stand up. As simple as that, and he tends to perform in the big games as well. So that's
definitely all valid points, and he's going to be my captain for sure as well. But there is a dip in his numbers.
If at all you were on the edge, I think 2 minutes I spoke and I must have. I was like, no,
I was not on the edge because I don't have De Bruyne. If I had De Bruyne, it would be a 51-49 thing. But there's nobody else I trust besides Salah or KDB this week.
Yeah, exactly. How do you think that let's talk a little bit of matchups. I mean, what a big game, Spurs Liverpool. How do you think that it just doesn't feel like a 0-0 kind of game to me? I feel like we'll see 3, 4, 5 goals in that game. It feels like one of those crazy games which will serve either way.
I think Klopp sticks to the highlight.
Yeah.
He won't abandon it, right?
He's never abandoned it.
Yeah.
He's never ever abandoned it.
Because he knows now what our Spurs strengths, and it'll be interesting to see how he adapts, if anyway.
Yeah, but I see a high line. I see a couple of chances for Son, where Kane is playing him through behind the line. So that's where I am. I think Kulu is also a good pick. He was sensational in that cameo against Leicester. Turned the game around. Absolutely turned the game around. We're segueing into Spurs now because I think Pool is done. I think we've spoken about.
Let's segue into Spurs. Let's talk about how Kane is going to be sitting on the center circle for most of the game.
Most of them, and looking to play balls to the runners. That's about it. That's what's going to be happening in this game, because he also just doesn't have the sprint pace he had maybe a couple of years ago to make that darting run beyond a couple of defenders. And Van Dijk is fast, Matip is fast. They're not slow defenders. So the matchup wise, I just like Salah. Sorry, Son as a pick this week.
Definitely a Son game. The second one, not so much. You see, Kane always does well. Excuse me.
Take your time. Right. People not on any chips right now, looking to shift Kane to Son. Would you do it? I wouldn't.
There's an interesting strategy. I think if you don't have De Bruyne, and I think you should consider, you can possibly shift Kane to somebody like a Richarlison this week and bring in De Bruyne for 36 and then segue De Bruyne to Son in 37. I do not mind that.
Just in my head, Burnley have been playing a little bit of loosey. I was just looking at the data tables in the morning. Interesting number. Burnley are 4th on the XG table in the last 6 matches. Have you ever seen something like that? Have you ever seen Burnley in the top 10? Never mind 4th. I was like astounded by that stat.
Are we going to do our Michael Jackson impressions? All the other podcasters seem to have done the
Yeah, I've literally heard, like, I've just heard FML FPL this week, not heard any podcast this week. But yeah, man, Jackson is killing it. Let's get carried away. I think we're in a little bit of a chill end of season mood at the moment. But Spurs, would you so? I don't know if I want to swerve because now that's based on my impression of Dyche Burnley, where they like to sit. But Burnley aren't really sitting at the moment. They're playing a little bit of front foot football. But if they're sitting and if Spurs are going to dominate possession, again, I see it as a Kane game in my head. You know what I'm saying?
I know, but just the way that Son is on fire at the moment, I would say, and it's a home game, right? Anytime I see a home game, I think Son banker.
Yeah. You told me about that before the Leicester game. Yeah. The 50-50 decision where it was between Kane and Coutinho versus Son and Watkins, and that led to about a 50-point variance in terms of how the results went. But that's how the rule. And I was never going to. Coutinho's done well for me. I'd be kidding myself if I was saying I was even remotely considering the Son and Watkins option. So that's fair. But I need to change that mindset about certain attachments where we have a certain attachment to a Harry Kane. I think FPL General also struggles with this at the moment because we're just bound by Kane, and Son is Son, and you need to pay much stronger attention to him.
And like you said, penalties might go to Son. It's unlikely given how Kane also values his own goal output, but they might.
And I don't know, but if I wouldn't switch. I wouldn't make the switch. I think transfers are better spent elsewhere at the moment. I wouldn't make the switch.
I would do it I would do the Kane to KDB move.
Only the KDB move this week. That's about it.
Because you get Richarlison also, right? You're getting Richarlison. Obviously, this depends on the money if you can afford it. This is what we were discussing with Baker. And that's when the idea came to be. If you can afford somebody like a Kane to Richarlison and upgrade one of your midfielders to KDB, I think that gives you, because Richarlison, I'm actually liking him more as a captain option than Coutinho now in 37.
Yeah, for sure. My God, Everton is like a... Goodison Park is like a heated cauldron at the moment. We'll segue into Everton just after Spurs, but anything else you want to add to Spurs? People looking at cheap defenders. I think Sessegnon 4.3 million is good for the end of the season. I don't mind if people don't have money to spend. I don't mind the Sess as an option. He's not a good pick this week, but you're getting Burnley and Norwich in 37 and 38, which are decent bets.
Yep. Not for this week. For this week, Spurs defense, I wouldn't be surprised they come up with like a 0 or a 1.
Yeah. And Kulusevski holders, hold him. 100% starting the double game week. There's still... I think that might be a little bit of a wake-up call for him because of dip in form. But again, the difference in quality between Moura and Kulusevski is a no-brainer in my head. He's starting.
Yep, he's got the kick he needed. Let's touch upon the
before.
Go ahead.
I'm a little nervous about free hitting him out because that kick up his arse is there, and he's now heated up to do what he's going to do. He looked really good in that goal.
He did, but ultimately you have to recognize the second assist was just by a wonder goal from Son. He created 2 chances and he got 2 assists.
Yeah, but before that also he was running around creating problems. There was I think there was another chance where he ran through the defense and the ball didn't quite reach Kane or Son, but he was good. He was creating chances from that side. Yeah. So I
wouldn't be afraid about free hitting, but he feels low ceiling-ish this week.
Yeah. I think you have to chase the upside with City. I think on free hit, I think you should do that. Right, Everton.
I think the fixtures are pretty good, considering this is the first game that Foxes have to play after the Europa thing that Watford have complete. It's the worst home record against the worst away record. that particular matchup. So that should be fun. And I think Everton will get, I think, let's say 1, 2, maybe 4 points from these two fixtures.
Tails will be up for them for sure. Especially, I'm maybe not as confident about the Leicester game, but the Watford game.
Richarlison is the one player I don't have that I really want almost as much as KDB this week, I think.
Yeah. I haven't in my team, and I don't think I'm going to free hit him out. He's probably going to be in there.
I'm still not sure you should free hit. We'll talk about your team. I think it's a luxury, as we spoke about the last few episodes. It's a complete luxury which you actually free hit.
I'll talk to you about it.
Yeah.
My thoughts have gathered a little this morning, so I'll talk to you in terms of where I am. But Richarlison, Gordon, good options. One thing is that both Leicester and Watford aren't really good from set pieces. They're weak from set pieces. So there are two things I think Tom rightly pointed out, where Gordon is an option because he's in corners for Everton. So you like that. And just as an outside punt, I want to throw a name in there. I think Yerry Mina is a good punt for free hitters this week. Especially because both like to concede on set pieces. You're hoping that Everton like keep 1 out of 2 clean sheets and you're chasing a goal. That's where I am with somebody like a Mina. And they are defensively better when Mina is playing in that team. So there was a stat that I read where they have 4 or 5 clean sheets out of 11 or 12 games when Mina is starting. So he's that important to that backline. So
that Everton Leicester game could be 5-5, and I wouldn't be surprised if all the goals are from set pieces. Even last night, they lost to Roma because they conceded from a set piece.
Yep. Well, right. So that's Everton covered.
Let's talk about Leicester. Since we mentioned Leicester, let's dial it back now. So the fixture now for schedule is quite tough now for Leicester. Even if you look at the fixture crunch, where both the fixtures first to Everton and Norwich are in red, because they play Everton on the Sunday and then they play Norwich right away on the Wednesday. So even the gap between the fixtures, so effectively they would have played Thursday, Saturday, and Wednesday. It's quite a congested schedule. Now, what happened last night was you had Harvey Barnes and Ademola Lookman who started the game, but they were both substituted at halftime. Iheanacho came on alongside Amati, and they switched the shape to 2 up front. So you think that you think one of those guys, like maybe both of them, should get a start versus Everton, but the reason why they changed system is because they were poor. Primarily. So it's a bit of a minefield. You could see, and Vardy is fit now, you could see Vardy and Nacho starting against Norwich and all that stuff. But on a free hit, I don't mind a punt on a Barnes.
No. I'd still go Maddison over Barnes.
Maddison, we need to give context to that hip problem. Remember the quote we saw?
Exactly. So it depends on what we know or hear about when it comes to their fitness concerns. I think that's a factor. I don't mind a punt on a Maddison. I think Vardy is just too expensive to punt when you're trying to fit in this is the free hit chat. If you're trying to fit in a KDB, Son, and Salah, you don't have money for a Vardy. That's where we are at the moment. So it's become a little difficult to fit in. And the game you really want your Leicester player starting in is the Norwich game. I think Everton will definitely give them more of a fight because of how much they have at stake. And Everton's the first game, Norwich is the second game. So you're expecting the first team to play at Norwich with maybe 3 or 4 of the first team playing the Everton game, the guys who are slightly fit and not in the red zone, as you would like to call it. That's one of the reasons why I don't mind Leicester players are transfer in as well, because you're getting a decent double in 37, Watford away and Chelsea away, and you're getting Southampton at home, I think, in Gameweek 38 as well. So they're good transfer in. Still not above City in terms of priority order, in terms of who you're transferring in. But if looking for a cheap asset, I don't mind a Maddison transferring in. The only thing is I managed to look at the highlights. He was playing really deep. And he's a streaky guy. You know, when he's on it, you can see when you're watching Leicester that he's on it. He just didn't look it yesterday. That said, it's a punt and I don't mind it.
Yeah, I do see Barnes getting, let's say, even if he doesn't start, but he gets 120 minutes in 36, 120 minutes in 37, maybe a start in 38.
Yeah. I'm a little worried because Barnes isn't first choice at the moment. There are two things at the moment. Because of the number of centre backs that Brendan Rodgers has at his disposal right now, he could easily switch to a 3-5-2. Yes. All of a sudden, your Pereira and Castagna or Justin become really, really attractive as options. Justin because he can play wing back or right-sided or left-sided centre back. His versatility comes as an option. That means Barnes doesn't feature in that formation. And second thing is he's competing with Lookman, who's done really well in the wing formation as well, when they're playing 4-3-3 as well. So that's where I'm a little... Maddison finds his place in both teams. And in fact, he's a better player when he's playing behind 2 strikers in the 10. So that's where I am. That's why if you're punting, I'd still go Maddison over the Barnes pick.
What put me off Maddison was a quote from Rodgers, and I'll just share that again. So Rogers, before the Spurs game, said that Maddison couldn't make it because he's managing the same hip injury he had earlier in the season. So when you remember that what was happening earlier, he was struggling to play 2 games a week with close proximity. Now, obviously, when you have a game like a semi-final, etc., you play through the pain. You take these injections, painkillers, etc., whatever you need to do to play. Now, with nothing left to play, the minutes might be managed a bit more than, say, Barnes. That was my reservation. But when they both play, I definitely do prefer Maddison.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and I just think Barnes won't get enough minutes. That's where I am.
Headshot.
Yeah. I mean, I'd much rather punt on a Martinelli at that price, is where I am, because of the Leeds fixture and the Spurs fixture. I think both the Arsenal games actually have goals written on them. So I don't mind them
Let's
from an
talk
attacker's
Arsenal.
point of view.
And Ketia.
Yeah.
Clear
I
first
just
choice.
want to say at this point, our segues into the next team have been beautiful throughout the pod. Somehow we've been talking about a player and that we move into the next team, and it just happens at the time we're ending talking about a team. Good job by us. Anyway, Arsenal, let's talk about them.
Yes. And Ketia, 90 minutes back to back with not a single minute for Lacazette. I found that quite surprising, and he completely changes Arsenal as a team. The way they play tactically, that ball that El Neni played over to him. I haven't seen Lacazette do that. And there was a stat that I read somewhere, I think 3-5, who shared it. I think he's had more shots on target in 2 matches than Lacazette had in the last 8 or 10.
Yeah. Even in the West Ham game, there were 2 or 3 shots where he ran with the ball and he shot from outside the D on that left-hand side, and it just missed the post outside
finesse,
post.
The FIFA finesse shot.
The FIFA finesse shot, yeah. I was like, yeah, he's not a bad pick. He looks lively at the moment, because I didn't rate him as a player, but that West Ham performance was quite impressive. I think the slot is his to lose from what I've heard from Arsenal fans. If Arteta finds a winning formula, it takes a lot for him to change that. So I think it's a fairly reasonable, not risky punt. And the thing is, you want him more for the Leeds game than the Spurs game. And I don't see Lacazette playing in a high intensity, high running Leeds game. I think Nketiah definitely plays. There's also the old club factor a little bit with Eddie at Leeds United. So I don't mind him as a punt.
Yep. The Tottenham game, I would be slightly more worried. That being said, 0 minutes for Lacazette just keeps coming back to me. That means it's completely done. And I think they're looking to keep Nketiah. The noises I've made, they're sort of trying to convince him to stay for a longer period.
Fair. Also, one thing, a mistake that free hitters might make is swerve somebody like a Saka on free hit. Don't do it. Like you might be looking for 1 million somewhere, and then the easy upgrade in your head is downgrade in your head is going Saka to Martinelli just to find that 1 million. I think that important factor, I would have been up for the punt maybe 3 weeks ago, but now Saka's on most corners and penalties. I think when you're looking at 2 weeks, the percentages when it comes to a penalty taker also sort of matters. The odds of getting a penalty are higher, so that's another factor.
Yep. Martinelli, the whole ESR thing also it changes the dynamic now, the way they're playing with Nketiah. I wouldn't go looking at Martinelli even on a free hit.
Yeah. He doesn't look as good an asset because Nketiah is a runner. Earlier, if Lacazette was sitting and occupying that, he was a false 9 position, Martinelli and Saka were responsible for making the runs beyond. Now, Martinelli is hogging the touchline a lot more. So, yeah.
That's where I am in terms of defense. I would be surprised if they keep a clean sheet in either fixture.
Yep. Maybe 1 clean sheet if you're lucky. That's where I'm.
Or not. Who should we go look at next? We've already done the top few guys: Spurs, Arsenal, Leeds, Everton, Villa.
Yeah, I mean, one of the games is Liverpool. That's the problem with Villa at the moment. Burnley is a really good game for attackers in my head now. Just because they're attacking a lot more than they used to. They're not sitting back as much. So I don't mind that fixture. I don't mind the Villa attackers for the Burnley game, but I wouldn't buy them right now. The right time to buy is next week. If you're buying this week, I'd buy Everton players over Aston Villa players. That's where I am.
So what was interesting last week was a formation change for Villa. When Ings came on, I thought Coutinho looked a lot more dangerous. When Bailey was on, he was playing on a wider role on the left side, but he became very central in the number 10 when Ings and Watkins came on. And I think Ings and Watkins will continue for this game at least, having done well the last game. So Coutinho is not bad for this week. There's some talk again about him being rotated. We were worried about that as well, but they've had a full week break. I think he plays Burnley and Liverpool. I don't think Gerrard could bench him against. He'd get absolutely rollocked by Villa fans for showing favoritism to Liverpool, right? If you bench somebody like Coutinho, they'd say you did it to throw the game against Liverpool, etc., shit like that.
But also he's thinking about the club. The games after that for Villa are more winnable games. Yeah. So
possibly.
and a game like Liverpool, I don't actually mind a high energy Emi Bundia who's going to run around a lot more than a Coutinho in a game like that. So
I don't know. It just seems you play the biggest game, you play your biggest players.
agreed. Cool. I think that's every team that we need to cover.
Wolves, we don't need to touch. Norwich, I guess Pukki is a bench boost option. Watford, there's really not much to touch upon there
Do you,
either.
do you, let's talk about Pukki. Just your order of preference in terms of Richa, Pukki, and Nikitya.
Richa and Ketia Pukki.
That's where I am as well. I mean, you don't know what you're going to get from Norwich now that they're relegated. They could just
Zero
be,
shots on target for Pukki last 2 games.
Yeah. Just that now they're relegated, right? So do the head drops or they're playing free flow, don't care about anything football anyway. So
I don't think they're necessarily going to score many still. They might be a
Yeah.
bit more open in terms of conceding, but in terms of scoring, it's like Middlesbrough a few years ago. We expected them, like initially, once they become relegated, maybe they'll start to score more and all that stuff. But I don't think necessarily, because again, West Ham, they lost. So they're probably going to play a strongish lineup on Sunday. Every time you lose, you want to show a sort of reaction because that's how you recover as human beings. You go from a low point, you try to bring a victory, you try to bring some sort of upward movement. So both these teams are going to want to correct their losses.
Right.
You see David Moyes kicking the ball back at a ball boy yesterday. Moyes lost the plot. Right.
Yeah, that's actually an important factor while we discuss Man City because in 37, first choice West Ham is going to be playing Man City.
That's why we wanted to
And
wait
it's a must.
because if they had gotten through, it completely changes the picture for Man City players in 37 also.
Exactly. And that's one of the things because let's move into the free hit conversation now. Because if I was looking to free hit in 37, I was like, maybe I want to plunk on a City player or two if West Ham have that final. And they don't now. So it makes a full strength man's West Ham team is difficult to break down, as we've seen. Moyes is going to park. And they are not as easy to break down. So
There's Zuma back also now.
Zuma back and Dawson is back from a suspension as well. And that's a good first choice defense. Cresswell is going to be playing wing back and
Zophar is back. Everyone. Rice, Suchek, everyone.
So it's a good tough team. So that West Ham away fixture isn't as attractive. And I only own Cancelo from Man City at the moment. That's why I'll talk to you about the free hit chat. Right. Well, just before we move into the free hit chat and anything we need to cover for the bench boosters in 36, I think people know who the cheap options are to go for. I think you go Everton. Somebody at Everton that I do want to talk about is Mykolenko. He's played really well as well. And I think he's first choice. If you're looking for cheap assets, he's a good option. I prefer him because there is a slightly higher chance of getting a clean sheet compared to Cess, for example, because Cess has 2 tough fixtures. So that's where I am. Where else do you go for cheap players? Gordon has to be nailed in your draft if you're looking for cheap players.
I think if you have Pukki, moving him out to Nketiah, I think is a good option because it gives you an extra player for 38 as well, potentially.
Yeah. And Arsenal, I think, have a decent fixture. They have Newcastle and Everton in 37 and 38. So they're not great fixtures, but they're not bad fixtures either. Don't mind it.
Correct. Especially 38, because if Everton need points, it's going to be an open game. The Newcastle fixture, I don't like that much.
That game is going to be great if both Everton and Arsenal need points in that game. Like it's going to be great to watch. Right. Number of players. This is something that interested me because I'm considering free hit, and you spoke about free hit being a luxury. I just looked at it. Whether I play the free hit in 36, 37, or 38, it's a luxury for me. My team is in a pretty good place for all the 3 weeks. So it's about what I'm gaining versus what I'm losing and what has higher upside. Shout out to Niami, our friend from our WhatsApp chat, where I tweeted out saying I'm contemplating freeing the free hit with this team. And what he said was that the expected value, the EV on FPL review, my team, there's about a 7 to 8 point difference between my team and the EV for the best free hit team in 36. And there is about a 15-point difference between my team without a transfer in 37 and the best free hit team. So there's a lot more to gain in 37. And that's from an expected value point of view. But I don't think, generally as a comment and an observation, that these models take into account the explosivity of the players when we're doing predicted points, etc. as well. And they're trying to map potential outcomes for these players, etc. as well. And as much as I understand, not being a really smart and mathematical guy, is that somebody like a De Bruyne averages, let's say, 12, 11 points in a double game week like this in 36, but his potential to get 20-25 points is really high as well, which is something that we subconsciously sort of
Which you
calculate
might
in our
not get
head.
from a Zaha next week.
Exactly. If you can move into my team, because I think a lot of people are facing this issue.
You want to just
Because
read
a lot
out
of
a
people,
few of this for the audio guys?
yeah, just for the audio guys, this is the number of players that people had in game week 35 from the doublers in 36. This is the top 10k, I think. Yes. Liverpool, most managers have 2.5 Liverpool players, which is average, and I think that's going to be the case with most of us. Chelsea, uh, most managers own 2 Chelsea players. Now that's a gamble I'm willing to make against, because I would be free hitting out Chelsea players. I think people might consider selling out Chelsea players because we are expecting them to be benched for a Leeds. It's a high risk gamble. Chelsea could easily play their first choice team. Alonso and Reece could easily play the 2 games, and then you're screwed. But it's a high risk, very high risk, high reward sort of a gamble if you're playing the free hit in game week 36. Arsenal 1.7, 1.8, and I think that's going to be sticking. You're going to stick Saka in whether you're free hitting or not. I think you can swerve the defense if you're going on free hit. A lot of people are Ramsdale owners, etc. as well. Spurs, on an average, people own 1.5. I think some free hitters are looking to swerve Spurs completely. I am probably not for that. I think Son needs to be there on free hit because he's going to get 180 minutes. Man City is where the opportunity is, where most people own 1.3 City players. And the thinking in my head is I quite like City for this game week. I'm okay without them in 37 because West Ham away is a tough fixture. So I'm owning just Cancelo, and I don't think any of the midfielders are explosive in 37. I don't think we're going to be captaining a City player in 37 either. So what I'm gaining on the field on an average is 2 City players in 36 if I'm free hitting. This is assuming these are the transfers in 35. I think this average goes up in 36 anyway because most people are going to be transferring in City players. So I think this is going to be close to 1.7, 1.8. I still think
Probably
you gain 1.2.
It'll be probably 2. I think you'll probably effectively gain 1 City player because if you're making a free transfer, that would have been a City player anyway, right? So it's less effectively. So discounting that on the free hit, you're gaining 1 more to the 2 you would have had already. So you're effectively gaining 1 additional City player, I would say, on the free hit. But it also depends on which City player.
Yeah, and also it depends on read now, because I'm reading opinions on Twitter and people are polarized in their opinions where they're saying City is a no-go, their heads will be down. You and me are a lot more bullish on City compared to, but there are people who are worried about City. I'm not too worried.
I'm not.
Yeah, exactly. So just that also counts. I think the rest of the teams we don't really need to talk about too much because they're not the high explosivity, high potential.
Excuse me for a second.
Yeah. Everton 0.35. Top 10k managers own 0.35 Everton players on average. So you can go with Richarlison. It's somebody you like to gain. And I do think Everton have good fixtures from an attacking point of view. Now, Zoph isn't here. So just a little bit of...
I'm back, sorry.
You're back. Cool. Somebody in the chat said, just get a little bit of water. LR, you've been talking for a while, so I'll just get...
Yeah, go for it. So, again, like the main moves, you'll be probably losing your Chelsea players, but it's not about, again, quantity. It's all about the right players. But you might have only a Cancelo, you might have a double defense, and there's no way to get a De Bruyne without the free hit. But should you free hit just to get 2 or 3 City players? Now, let's look at your team to visualize this.
Yeah. So for the benefit of the listeners, I'm just going to read out my team. I currently have Ramsdale, Trent, Robbo, Cancelo, James. I have Gordon, Salah, Saka, Kulusevski, Kane, and Richarlison. Perfectly good team. And in fact, I have the luxury of having Coutinho and Ben White on my bench at the moment. So perfectly good team. The thing in my head, I'll just tell you what I'm debating sort of internally, is that I want KDB and Son, primarily 2 assets that I can't get in. I can try squeezing in a third City midfielder that requires some compromises. The compromise that might require is pushing Richarlison down to Nketiah. I still have to play around with the team tonight when I'm trying to weigh the pros and cons. But the thing with the Kane, Son, and another third City player is that their potential, it's the last week to chase big hauls from good players from good teams, in my opinion. If you're doing it in 37, you're free hitting in Zaha, Cash, the likes of that. I already have Gordon, Coutinho, and Richarlison. So my doublers, I have a good amount of doublers in place for 37 already. I don't mind even transferring in a Zaha or a Cash in 37 and figuring out what to do in 38. So the thing is, the fixtures on paper for these teams in 37 are much better, but the quality of the players and getting the right players in 36 And especially, I in fact think that the 36 the Champions League result is only going to re-energize and reinvigorate City. I'm much more bullish on City now.
Very.
Yeah, it would have been much better, but that first team will have a lot to play for and will want to correct a lot of measures, etc. as well. So there is much more upside. It's a luxury any week. Now I'm just, for the benefit of the listeners, I opened up my FPL.team as well, which tells you the team next week. And I have Richarlison, Gordon, Coutinho, who have doubles. I have Kane and Kulusevski, who have Burnley at home. I have Salah, Trent, and Robbo, who have Southampton away. I have James, who has Leicester at home. Cancelo, who has West Ham away. On my bench, I have White and Saka. Like, my team, in terms of good teams from good players, the single game weekers is fine. I'll probably shift in a double game weeker if I want to, because I looked at Let's Talk FPL Andy's tweet where he spoke about his potential free hit 37 team. I see those nice fixtures with Cash and Watkins having Norwich at home, sorry, Burnley at home and Palace at home, and I'm like, shit, that's who I'm betting against in 37. So it's in terms of risk, it's a much lower risk free hit in 37.
It is.
But the potential upside is higher in 36 in my head because of the caliber of the players you're bringing in. But the potential risk, I can easily lose 15, 20, 25 points on my free hit in 36.
Yes.
But I can easily gain 25, 30 points as well. That's where I'm debating.
I'm looking at your team now. Let's have a look at first who would say the weak links are from top to bottom. Ramsdale is somebody who I wouldn't want. Kulusevski is not a great pick this week, but not a bad pick per se. Richarlison, I think, would definitely be on my free hit team as well. Gordon probably would not be. Because again, it doesn't feel like a high ceiling player. So I think the 4 players from this I would probably lose on a free hit. Even James is a 50-50. I wouldn't be surprised if James in a single outscores any doubler also. It's quite possible.
Exactly.
So the guys you'd really want to lose in this would be Gordon, Kane, Kulusevski, Ramsdale. Effectively.
And I know if I'm free hitting, I'll lose Robbo and James. I know that.
Probably, but again, Robbo, you never want. Even if they score, you never know the way he could score himself. He's on another level, absolutely, at the moment.
I'm very aware that I can lose 25 points on free hit. Very aware. It's just whether it's worth the roll of the dice.
What you're also doing is you're also losing a free transfer, but you're going to have to. Are you not going to get any City attacker now for the rest of the season?
I like the fact that West Ham lost that game. So I'm not going to think very heavy about getting a City attacker again in that West Ham tie. I'll probably get in a cash or something like that because I think the upside is there more. So that's what my thinking is. And 38, we see where 38 leads us. There's also an option to free hit in 38. I looked at 38 closely. The real standout fixture is Chelsea playing Watford at home in 38. That's the real standout fixture. And the base of my 37 and 38 teams outside of having 3 Pool, Cancelo, James is I have Kane and Kulusevski. I'm okay with that for Burnley at home and Norwich away. You know what I'm saying? So essentially, whether I free hit in 36, 37 or 38, I'm going to be changing 3 or 4 players. It isn't going to be a massive change. It's going to be a luxury free hit in any of those weeks. I just convert more single game weekers to double game weekers in 37, but that's free hitting out players from good teams.
Even have Coutinho on the bench. I just noticed that you swap him in. I don't mind him as a pick also this week.
Have a good week. It's a luxury any week. It really is a luxury any week. So really, I'm definitely going to go buy some scotch tonight, sit with the instinct, get those feelings in and see where I am.
If you don't free hit, what will likely be your transfers?
I don't know. Try to get Son or KDB in, but I don't have a way to fund that except selling Kane. And that's a minus.
You can do a Kane to a De Bruyne move. For Kane to Kulusevski, you can go De Bruyne, then maybe get in. I don't know what your budget would be for the forward. You could get an Nketiah easily. I know that.
Yeah. But that's a -4 also.
Yeah, but you're getting also a good player for 38 also with De Bruyne. But then Kulusevski is also a good player.
Exactly. So team structure is quite good for 37 and 38 as things stand. You know what I'm saying? I just think there's more points to chase in 36 with the triple city.
Very marginal either way. I just think there are more players who 37 that you would possibly want that you don't have.
Yeah. Why? If I had one less Everton or Villa player, I'd maybe consider. But I have Gordon, Richard, and Coutinho. In my opinion, they're the 3 best picks for attackers if you're looking at free hit picks.
Next week, yeah. Probably Zaha would add in or maybe another Villa defender.
Zaha, Watkins, Cash. These are the kind of guys that probably get in if I don't get in. I'm even looking at maybe getting in a Leicester player. So it's marginal either way. That's where I am.
You'd also
Yeah,
get probably a Sun next week also on the free hit as well. Also something you would gain, but then you have Kane. You could possibly have both.
yeah, and
I'm favoring a free hit next. Just my initial thought is I like the free hit more for next week.
the thing also is that I prefer Son a lot more this week. Like this is the game week for Son in my head. So just talking from a matchup perspective, at the end of the day, there's a lot of luck involved as well when you're speculating. That's our job to do as FPL managers, is to speculate. So yeah, that's where I am. I'm still not decided, but if I'm honest about where I am, I'm at 60% free hitting this week, 30% free hitting in 37, and 10% chance I free hit in
I don't think you need
38
one in
as well.
38. The way your team is set up, you don't have too many of these Villa. You only need to free it in 38. I think we're going very heavy on Villa and Everton.
Yeah. The thing is, when I'm thinking about my transfers in 37, and no point thinking about the transfers now because there's 2 game weeks of football to play before that. A lot can change. I will keep an eye on my 38 team when I'm making those transfers as well. So that's where I am.
Cool. Team. Start from the back. Edison in goal. Cancelo, James, Trent, Robertson in defense. Coutinho, Salah cap, Mount, Saka, and Son midfield. And Ketia up top. On the bench, Steele, Pukki, Greenwood, and Kelly. So I am benching Pukki. I don't think there's anybody I can bring him in for. I would definitely play Nketiah over him. I have 1.1 in the bank now. The initial plan was to do Coutinho to Foden, but now I'm tempted by Mount to Mahrez. What do you think?
Chase that upside. 3 weeks to go. 3 weeks to go. The thing is that the problem is that first fixture is a really, really good fixture for Chelsea.
Yes.
Wolves at home is a prime fixture. And you're expecting James, Mount, Alonso, all of them to play.
And
So,
Mount is the most
that's
likely
that.
to even play Leeds that we're talking about. He's
Both.
definitely coming off the bench anyway. And Foden, I think, is if he gets benched the first game, he's definitely starting against Wolves as well. There's no
Can
chance
you afford
Foden is getting
Coutinho to
benched.
Mahrez?
No.
Can't afford Coutinho to Mahrez.
Because I think 1.1 in the bank, that comes to only about, I think, 8.1. Mahrez is 8.5.
I'm trying to see if there's a move that you can find that benefits the long term as well. Probably get in a player for next week.
37 is free hit.
37 is free hit. Then you want to keep your Chelsea players because they have a great fixture on 38. Then you see what
Yeah,
to do
but
with
we
them
just
in
talked
38.
about that. Like, will they even play the Watford game? It might be the testimonial type game, no?
Mount will play the Watford game.
That's a good game.
Whichever way you look at it, Mount will play that Watford game. I don't see him being on the bench in the last home game of the season.
Right. I'm just very
that's
disillusioned
another
with
factor.
Chelsea's form at the moment, the way we've been playing. But I do think we'll show some sort of reaction.
Yeah, I agree. I do think you all will show some sort of reaction. I think you all have not. Also, it was tough that Everton away tie is a really tough tie now. It's not an easy tie because of just how they play. They ran Liverpool close. Let's not hide that. So they're doing well. They're shithousing. They're doing everything it takes. They're fired up at the moment. So it's not an easy tie going to Goodison Park at the moment.
And Foden could still start. I'm still firmly of the view that their strongest team would come out. It all depends on fatigue.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. If you were predicting the first game, I'd say it'd be Mahrez.
Jesus Grealish.
Yeah. It'd be Mahrez and then 2 of Jesus, Grealish, Foden. That's what's going to happen. I don't see Sterling starting. That's where I am. So watch out for Luke's thread. It's really, really helpful.
I'll be looking for
sure
that. If there's no Foden in that, I'll be getting a bit worried.
Yep. And he gives the good thing about Luke is he gives his team and then he gives a proper reasoning in terms of what the thinking is. So he leaves the assumption and risk taking to you, which I like. I quite enjoy. So yeah.
Quick Q&A.
I'm not comfortable selling Mount off.
I'm not either.
Because of the 38 game. But see if you can. Since
I'd
you're
have to take
free
a hit.
hitting,
I'd have to take a hit if I want to sell Coutinho to Mahrez. I have to go Pukki to like a dud.
Yeah, do that. Keep your 38 team in mind because you don't have a doubt in your head in terms of where you're going to free hit. Make a move that strengthens your 36 and 38 using a hit. Do it. That would be my record because you don't need Coutinho. You just don't need Coutinho. So chase that upside with a -4. Over 2 weeks, the upside is much bigger. Chase that upside with a -4.
Let me see what we can do with that.
Yeah.
Let's do a quick Q&A.
Yes. Right. Guys, good pod, by the way. I enjoyed this chat in the morning. Much fresher in the morning as well.
I had a good run also before.
Guys, send in your questions, and while you are here, please make sure you're hitting the like and subscribe button as well. It really, really helps us. And yeah, that's where we are. Bakar is going to be joining us for the last two pods of the season, right? Zoph,
Yes, that's what he's told
yes.
us. It depends on
So
whether we receive the video or not, Mr. Bakar.
yeah. Interesting point from Tejas. Richarlison is just one yellow card away from the match ban, but
No,
Zoph
that's
looked it
no.
up.
Yes, it looked it up. It's gone.
You don't have to worry about Richarlison getting a ban. The only worry is that because of the flare thing that happened over the weekend, he threw a flare back into the stands. What's happened is now the police are looking into it, and until the police have a ruling on it, the FA can't have a ruling on it. So there could be some
It'll
time.
take
But
time.
the murmurs are that it's going to be a financial fine rather than him not playing. That's where we are. Sell Coutinho for KDB, yes. Yeah, Zoff?
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Space Offers asked a question. He has no Spurs. Son or KDB on free transfer, leaning towards Sterling plus Coutinho to Son plus Mahrez.
Yes, Sterling plus Coutinho, Son plus Mahrez. Yeah, if you've been listening to the pod, you know very well. I think a lot of these guys haven't been tuning in for the entire conversation. Absolutely, yes.
Zod, Simicast on free hit 36, absolutely not. We are thinking Robbo is 70%, 75% likely to play both games.
The waste of a Liverpool's. We hit 36. You don't want to go Robbo, you go for Diaz.
And you'll want Liverpool players in 37 and 38. Mohit has asked Barnes, Maddie, or Lukman, all three of us. No, Zoff fancied the Barnes pun, but I don't think he fancies it anymore. Where are you on Barnes now?
Out of the three, I would still punt on Barnes. But I don't think either of the three now, after our discussion, are great options.
I'm looking at Maddie if I go there. What to do with Rafinha? Play him, start him.
Yes.
180 minutes. Leeds have been creating a lot of chances.
Even against City, very lucky clean sheet for City.
If you can find a route from Rafinha to a City player, I don't mind it. But outside of that, hold him, play him this week. Punt on Vardy on free hit. I'm not confident about his fitness. Want to see if there's any Rogers murmurs. If let's say Vardy was fit, would you go Vardy punt over Sons off?
No, I don't think Vardy plays both.
No. Ryan's sent in a super chat. Thank you so much for the super chat, Ryan. Out of the chips, so with 37 in mind, would you sell Nketiah for Richarlison? And also, would you sell Robbo for Diaz or Laporte?
With 37 in mind, I don't mind the Nketiah to Richarlison. Richarlison feels like a higher ceiling over here, but Robbo for Diaz Laporte, I wouldn't do it.
Agree. That said, I have a good feeling about Nketiah in 36. I like the fixtures for him.
The old club thing, I always like having a player against an old club thing.
Love, everybody's asking this question. Worth keeping KDB or switch to Son? I'd keep KDB.
Keep KDB. Not a shot. Wouldn't think about it for a second.
Yeah, Son can hurt you, but
unless Pep comes out and says that KDB is has an injury or whatsoever. This is all contingent on press conferences.
Yes. Any news on Ben White? No. Arteta's press conference is likely going to be today. It's worth following Fantasy Football Scouts Twitter on Fridays. Neil does a great job of updating and they also do a video on Friday evening where there's a 40-minute video where they update all the news from the press conferences. And a lot of the nuances is something Neil talks about in those videos as well, where this manager was looking bullish, this manager was not. I think it adds to insight. So follow that. Mohit is thinking of bringing in Gabriel Jesus and Diaz as a punt. We don't mind it, but it's a punt. Just know that in your head.
Correct. Both high ceiling punts.
Yeah.
Couple more questions and we'll wrap up. Don't send any more super chats, guys.
For someone chasing, is it worth Kane to Richarlison and what pros to KDB? Yeah, for -4, and he's capping KDB.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're chasing, I like that.
It goes back to the same Kane to KDB switch we were talking about earlier.
Anik is asking a question. Timo to Vardy. The thing is, in my head, the Leeds game is good for Timo.
I'm not enthused by Vardy. He's like a single game week for him.
Cool. Last super chat, guys, and then we'll wrap up for today. Albas has asked, were dropping Kane for KDB this week and move to Son for game week 38?
Yes, from me.
Right, that's it from us today, guys. 2 more pods and then we're done with this season. Any last words of?
Nothing much, guys. Like and subscribe. Good luck with the game week and we will see you again next week.
Take care, guys. See you. Bakar, the dance video.